Whispering, Shadows of Elm Street, Vertical Bar, The Gatekeeper's Fate. Chapter 1. The Arrival. It was a chilly autumn evening when Evelyn Gray returned to her childhood home on Elm Street. The towering oaks lining the street were gnarled and twisted, their leafless branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. A thick fog rolled in, shrouding the old street in an eerie, ghostly veil. The house stood at the end of the street, a lonely, weather-beaten structure with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. Memories from her childhood flashed in her mind, laughter echoing in the halls, her mother's voice calling her in for supper, and the whispers. She had almost convinced herself those memories were dreams, but standing here now, she felt the familiar chill creep up her spine. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. As Evelyn unlocked the rusty gate, she noticed a figure standing under the dim streetlight. An old woman in a faded shawl, staring at her with hollow, knowing eyes. Before Evelyn could speak, the woman turned and disappeared into the fog. Shaking off the unease, she entered the house. Dust covered every surface and the stale air smelled of neglect. As she explored, she found an old family photograph on the mantel. Her fingers traced the faces of her parents, long gone. And there it was again. The whisper. A faint, almost imperceptible voice drifted through the cold air. "Welcome back. We've been waiting." Chapter 3. Secrets Beneath. Determined to ignore the strange occurrences, Evelyn set to work cleaning the house. In the basement, she discovered a locked chest, engraved with an unfamiliar symbol. Her curiosity burned, but she had no key. Suddenly, she felt cold breath on the back of her neck and heard the floor creak behind her. Spinning around, she saw nothing but shadows. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She backed away, only to trip over the chest and fall hard. The impact jarred the lid open, revealing old, faded letters tied with a crimson ribbon. The letters were addressed to her mother, but signed by someone named Adrian Blackwell. The last letter read, Chapter 4. The Forgotten Pact. Evelyn's hands trembled as she clutched the last letter. Adrian Blackwell. The name felt familiar, stirring something deep within her. Suddenly, the old grandfather clock in the living room chimed, 3 slow, heavy tolls, though it was long broken. Before she could gather her thoughts, the basement door slammed shut, plunging her into darkness. Her flashlight flickered and died. The air grew suffocatingly cold, and the same whispers she heard before now became a chorus, soft, sinister, and urgent. Leave before it awakens. Chapter 5. Shadows Unleashed. Panicked, Evelyn fumbled for the basement stairs. As she reached the top, the door creaked open on its own. Her flashlight sputtered back to life, illuminating the narrow, dimly lit hallway beyond. She sprinted toward the front door, but no matter how hard she pulled, it wouldn't budge, as though the house itself had locked her in. Then she saw it, just at the edge of the living room, a dark, shifting mass, vaguely humanoid, blending with the shadows. 2 hollow, burning eyes locked onto hers. It whispered, its voice like rustling leaves in a graveyard. "You can't run, Evelyn. You belong to us." Chapter 6. Guardian of the Past. Just when she thought she was doomed, a sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. A figure emerged, a young man in a worn leather coat, holding a strange, glowing talisman. His eyes burned with determination. "Get down!" he shouted, throwing the talisman toward the dark entity. It burst into blinding light, forcing the creature to retreat into the shadows with an enraged howl. Breathing heavily, Evelyn stared at the stranger. Who are you?" "I'm Adrian Blackwell, or what's left of him," he said grimly. "And if we don't leave now, they'll take both of us." Chapter 7. Bound by Fate. Adrian led Evelyn into the storm-lashed woods behind the house. As they hurried through the twisted trees, Evelyn demanded answers. "You wrote those letters. What's happening? Why is my family connected to this?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Your mother made a pact with the shadows long ago to save your life." "My life? Why me?" Adrian hesitated. Because you're the last gatekeeper, the only one who can seal them away forever. Before she could respond, the wind howled, carrying the shadow's furious whispers. They know we're here, Adrian growled. Run! Chapter 8. The Ancient Curse. Adrian and Evelyn took refuge in an abandoned chapel deep in the forest. Its ancient walls were etched with protective symbols Evelyn couldn't understand. As he secured the doors, he explained, Decades ago, your family guarded the rift, a gateway between the mortal world and the shadow realm. But your mother tried to escape her destiny, and the price was her soul. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes as she remembered her mother's sudden disappearance years ago. But why me? I never knew any of this. You were shielded, until now. Adrian handed her a small iron dagger inscribed with runes. This is the only thing that can sever the shadow's hold, but it must be wielded by you. Chapter 9. The Final Awakening. The chapel shuddered violently as the shadows swarmed outside. Their whispers grew into a deafening chant. Gatekeeper, surrender! Join us! Evelyn gripped the dagger, fear battling with newfound resolve. I'm not running anymore. Adrian nodded solemnly. Then let's end this. As the door burst open and darkness flooded in, Evelyn stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. You took my family, but you'll never take me. With one final, desperate thrust, she drove the enchanted dagger into the heart of the rift. Chapter 10. Shattered Veil. The dagger pierced the swirling vortex of darkness, sending a shockwave through the ancient chapel. The ground trembled as the shadows recoiled, their agonized screams tearing through the night. Evelyn clung to the hilt, feeling an icy force resisting her every move. Suddenly, a bone-chilling voice echoed from the depths of the rift. You think a mortal dagger can seal what's already unleashed? From the heart of the swirling shadows emerged a towering, humanoid figure cloaked in shifting darkness. The Shadow Sovereign, the ancient ruler of the Forgotten Realm. His hollow eyes burned with crimson malice. Adrian staggered to his feet, bloodied but determined. Evelyn, you have to finish the ritual. Drive the dagger deeper before... The Sovereign's hand shot forward, flinging Adrian against the far wall with supernatural force. He crumpled, unmoving. Chapter 11. Bargain of Souls. Evelyn felt despair creeping into her mind like venom, but she couldn't give in. Not now. She forced herself to stand, dagger still in hand. The Sovereign loomed closer, his voice now a sickening whisper. Your mother thought she could defy us, but she chose to join us, to save you. Would you like to see her again? For a brief moment, Evelyn saw a flicker of her mother's face within the shifting darkness. Pleading, sorrowful, trapped, her breath caught. Was she still alive? No! You're lying! Evelyn shouted, though doubt gnawed at her heart. Am I? The Sovereign hissed, extending a clawed hand. Join me willingly, and I will return her to you. Evelyn's mind reeled. If she surrendered, she might save her mother, but she knew the cost would be far greater. Chapter 12. The Gatekeeper's Choice. Evelyn gripped the dagger tighter, her heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to give in, but she couldn't. Her mother had sacrificed everything to protect her, and she couldn't betray that sacrifice. Drawing on every ounce of courage, she raised the dagger once more. I'm not afraid of you. The Sovereign roared in fury, lunging forward, but just before his claws reached her, a golden symbol blazed on Evelyn's chest. Light erupted from her being, forming a protective barrier. The old runes etched into the chapel walls flared to life. Suddenly, Adrian stirred, gasping for air. The seal of eternity. You awakened it, he rasped. Realizing the truth, Evelyn plunged the dagger into the rift one final time, shouting the ancient incantation Adrian had taught her. By blood and light, by fate's command, let shadows be banished from this land. Chapter 13. The Final Battle. The room exploded in a cascade of searing light and howling wind. The Sovereign let out a deafening cry as his connection to the mortal world shattered. Tendrils of shadow disintegrated into ash, and the rift itself began to collapse. but the pull of the collapsing gateway was too strong. Evelyn felt herself being dragged toward the swirling abyss. Adrian lunged, grabbing her hand just in time. "You're not going alone," he shouted, holding on with all his strength. With one last desperate effort, he pulled her free as the rift imploded behind them, sending shockwaves through the forest. Darkness faded, replaced by the soft glow of dawn. Chapter 14. Echoes of Memory. Hours later, Evelyn and Adrian stood outside the ruined chapel, breathless and battered, but alive. The shadows were gone, at least for now. "Is it over?" Evelyn whispered. "For now," Adrian replied. "But the rift can't be destroyed, only sealed. It will try to break free again someday." Evelyn nodded, a new strength burning in her eyes. "Then I'll be ready." Just as they turned to leave, a soft breeze whispered through the trees, a voice faint but familiar. "Evelyn, my brave girl, I'm proud of you." Tears streamed down her face. Her mother's spirit, free at last. Epilogue, a new dawn. Weeks passed since the rift's collapse, but the memory of that night lingered like an old scar. Evelyn stayed in her family's house on Elm Street, though it no longer felt haunted. The dark whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the songs of morning birds. Adrian prepared to leave. The rift is sealed, for now, but there are other gates out there, other evils. Evelyn nodded. "And I'm staying here, guarding this place." He hesitated, then handed her the enchanted dagger, now dull but still inscribed with ancient runes. "You're stronger than you know. If you ever need me, you'll find a way." Their eyes met, shared understanding, respect, maybe even something deeper. Without another word, he disappeared into the distant woods, leaving her standing at the gate of Elm Street. Final scene. Echoes in the wind that night. Evelyn lit a small candle by the old family photograph on the mantel. Her mother's face smiled gently from the frame. As she gazed into the flickering flame, a cold breeze swept through the room, rustling the leaves outside. For a heartbeat, she thought she heard a familiar whisper. Not sinister this time, but protective. "Be strong, my brave girl." Smiling through her tears, Evelyn whispered back, "I will." With that, she closed the window and turned off the light, leaving only the soft glow of the candle burning steadily in the dark. The end.